Hey kids, how are you? I am so excited to be with you today. This month we're talking about something important that God can do in us to change the world around us. And with God's help, we can take initiative. Initiative is seeing what needs to be done and doing it. So, step one, we look around and we see what needs to be done. And step two, we just do something about it. If you think about it, that's what Jesus did. When he saw something that needed to be done, he just did it. He healed people who needed healing. He fed people who were hungry. He helped people who were hurting. Jesus is just a great example of having initiative. And so is the man that we read about last week, Nehemiah. And we'll pick up his story in just a little bit. I can't wait to see how things went as he and the people tried to rebuild the city walls of Jerusalem. But first, let's have a little fun with a little Bible trivia. Check this out. Hey, great job, everyone. Listen, stay on your feet because now we get to sing and worship our God, the one who created us. He created all the planets, the whole universe in the first place. So let's do this. Let's worship God together.
Before the day I took a breath, you had a plan for my every step. You promised to always be by my side. I believe that you are the way, you are the truth, you are the light. So I sing this to you. You keep your promises every
Good job singing, kids. Well, right now, let's bow our heads and pray together and ask God to help us understand today's lesson. Dear God, we thank you for the day. We thank you for loving us, for saving us, and allowing us this opportunity to meet here online with these amazing boys and girls. God, I need your help today. I need your word so that I can clearly communicate to the kids this lesson about initiative. And we're excited to see how you used Nehemiah, just someone who took initiative. He saw that the city walls were in ruin, and he just decided to do something about it. So I pray that you'll help myself and all these kids watching today to learn more about initiative, to be more aware of the things that we see around us that needs our help. And rather than waiting and letting someone else do it, God, we would just take the initiative and jump in and do it. God, I pray if there's a boy or girl listening today and they've never trusted you as their Savior, it would be so awesome if they would do that today and let us know so we can celebrate in their decision with them. So God, we love you. We thank you for what you're doing, and we ask these things in your name. Amen. You know, kids, last week we taught you a new song, and the song was called Make a Move. Man, it is a fun song, and we're going to sing it again right now. Remember, God created us for a purpose, and He's doing a great work in our lives, and we can choose to take the initiative to do whatever He put in front of us to do. So let's sing this out.
Help me, God, to see what you see. You are doing a great work in me. I've decided I can't stand still. No, you have given me purpose. All my heart is yours. All my life is yours. I will make a move for you, for you. All my heart is yours. All my life is yours. I will make a move for you. Make a move for you. Make a move. Make a move. Make a move for you. I will make a move. Make a move. Make a move for you. I will. I'll take up the call to serve you. You have given me a job to do. I wanna love the world just like you. Yeah, you have given me purpose. All my heart is yours. All my life is yours. I will make a move for you, for you. All my heart is yours. All my life is yours. I will make a move for you. Make a move for you. Make a move. Make a move. Make a move for you. I will make a move. Make a move. Make a move for you. I will. Make a move.
We have a big project waiting for us today in our story. It's the next part in this continuing story of Nehemiah. And just in case you need a refresher, here's what we talked about last week. See, God's people have been captives in the Babylonian Empire for a really long time. And the Babylonian Empire was then taken over by the Persian Empire. And Nehemiah found himself in this important role in Persia as the king's cupbearer. This meant that Nehemiah was in charge of making sure nobody poisoned the king. He would just take the king's drink and sip a little bit of it for himself. But if it was poisoned, it would be like, oh, that tastes bad. Yeah, talk about a high-risk job. Nehemiah had it. Well, as a result of his position, the king came to trust Nehemiah, obviously. When the news came that the city walls of Jerusalem was destroyed and that the people were defenseless, Nehemiah cried and prayed to God. And the king gave Nehemiah then permission to go to Jerusalem. Nehemiah, he took a look at the city wall for himself, and he realized that something had to be done. So he took initiative, and he rallied all the people around him to fix it. And today we're picking up the story as Nehemiah and the people began to repair the city wall. See, each family or group took a different part of the wall to work on. And the people from neighboring nations didn't want the wall to be rebuilt, so they tried to stop God's people by insulting them. Still, Nehemiah and the people managed to ignore their taunts and their threats. It just seemed like nothing could stop their project until new trouble showed up from inside the walls. See, some of God's people were saying this, and we find this in Nehemiah chapter 5, beginning in verse 2. Here's what some of the people were saying. There are now many of us. We have many sons and daughters. We have to get some grain so we can eat and stay alive. Others were saying, we're being forced to sell our fields, our vineyards, and homes. We have to do it to buy grain, and there isn't enough food for everyone. And still even others were saying, we've had to borrow money. We needed it to pay the king's tax on our fields and vineyards. So the people just weren't happy, and I can understand why. There wasn't enough food for everyone, and that's a lot of empty stomachs. So the people had to sell their fields and their vineyards just to buy grain to eat. And then they even had to borrow money just to pay for the taxes. Well, the officials charged them interest, which means the people had to pay extra in addition to paying back the money that they borrowed. It got so bad that some of the people were forced to send their children to work for the officials since they owed them so much money. Yikes. Well, Nehemiah saw, this just isn't right. He knew that he needed to do something to help these people. And the whole reason he came to Jerusalem in the first place was because he knew that God's people were in trouble. So he took some initiative. He decided to act. He called all the officials to a meeting, and he reminded them that many of the Jewish people had been taken away as captives, and they had been through so many difficult things together as a nation. And he told the officials that what they were doing was so wrong. And you know what? The officials knew that Nehemiah was right. See, they weren't treating others the way that they would want to be treated. That's something we say in here a lot, right? That we should treat others the way that we want to be treated. Well, again, these officials realized they weren't treating others the way that they would want to be treated. And they had nothing to say in response. So Nehemiah then told the officials that he and his relatives were lending money and grain, but not charging any interest. He told the officials to give back what the people had paid, including the interest that they had charged. Wow. So these officials now had a choice. They knew what they needed to do, but did they do it? They did. After Nehemiah spoke to them, they responded by doing just as Nehemiah had said. They gave back the vineyards and the extra money that they had been charging the people. And the people's children, well, they were able to come home, and the people were thrilled. Once the officials had made the right decision that they needed to make, everyone had what they needed, and they could begin to work on the walls again. All of this may not sound like much, but None of it would have ever happened had Nehemiah not taken the initiative to make things right. See, all the other governors had made the people give them silver, food, and land. But Nehemiah didn't want to make things difficult for the people while they were taking on such a huge project. Instead, Nehemiah dedicated himself to working on the wall, and he made sure that the people had what they needed as well. He even invited 150 people to eat the food at his own table. And when Nehemiah saw that the people were treated unfairly, he stopped everything and he took the time to make things right. And you know what? That's something that you and I can do as well. We can look for ways to make things right.
The Bible. It's 66 books of history, stories, letters, and poetry that fit together to form God's one big story. The epic adventure of how He created us and loves us so much that He made a way to rescue us. As we travel through the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, we discover people who met God and found their lives changed forever. Now, for an amazing story. Inspired by the book of Nehemiah, chapter 5, verses 1 through 12.
Nehemiah had traveled all the way from the king's palace of Persia to the broken down city of Jerusalem. And there, with God's help, he rallied all the Jews living there to begin the epic job of rebuilding that city's walls.
Who's with me?
I say, let's start rebuilding.
At first, the work went well. Each family or group took a different part of the wall to work on.
We're making record time.
Nehemiah and the people even managed to ignore taunts and threats from neighboring nations who did not want to see that wall rebuilt.
If a fox climbs on that pathetic thing, it'll fall right down.
The God of heaven will give us success.
So it seemed like nothing was going to stop this big project until new trouble showed up. From inside the walls, a group of Jews in ragged cloaks came to look for Nehemiah where he was working on the wall.
There's not enough food for everyone. We're being forced to sell our fields and vineyards just to buy grain.
There's hardly enough to keep us alive.
The king's taxes are high. We have to borrow money, but then we can't even pay the high interest.
Interest was extra money the people had to pay back. It was so high they could hardly keep any of the money they made.
Who's making you do this?
Other Jews, our own relatives.
We even had to send our children to work for them as slaves.
We have nothing left. Please help us. This is not right. It's not right at all. I'll take care of it.
Nehemiah was so angry that he didn't trust himself to act in the moment. Instead, he thought it over for a time.
God, what do I do about this?
His own people were mistreating those who had less. Nehemiah took this so seriously, he stopped work on the wall to call together the Jewish nobles and officials.
What's this all about?
Better be good. Making us lose all this work time.
It's not good. It's bad. You're charging your own people interest.
It's not like it's that much.
I mean, we can't loan money for free, right?
Do you have to ask me this? Think about it. Many Jewish people were sold as slaves to other nations, and we had to buy them back and bring them home. Now, you're charging so much interest, they are forced to become slaves again.
Oh.
No one could argue with Nehemiah. They listened quietly to his next words.
What you're doing is not right. We have to show respect for God. Look, I am lending money and grain to the people who need it, and so are my relatives, but we aren't charging any interest.
So, what should we do now?
If you've taken anything in payment, give it back. Fields, vineyards, olive groves, houses, give it all back. Even the interest that you've charged, do it now.
God moved in the hearts of the people because instead of arguing, they agreed.
We'll give it back.
We won't make them give us anything else.
We'll do just as you say.
Very good.
Nehemiah sent for the priests so that the nobles and officials could make this promise before God.
You must keep this promise, or God will deal with you.
Amen.
Immediately, the officials did as they said.
Here are the papers. The vineyard is yours again. Oh, thank you. I've been working years to get it ready for a good harvest.
I took too much. This is yours.
This means my son can come home now.
So once the nobles and officials made everything right, work on the wall began again, faster and stronger than before, now that everyone had what they needed. And Nehemiah continued to show his people how to treat each other, even though King Artaxerxes had appointed him governor.
You know, all the other governors made the people pay them silver and give them lots of food and stuff, even land.
That's too heavy a load to put on the people.
Instead, Nehemiah dedicated himself to working on the wall. In fact, he even invited 150 people to eat food at his own table. Throughout his life, he always looked for ways to treat people fairly and make things right.
What a cool story. I love seeing how Nehemiah took the initiative to make a difference for others. And remember, this all happened because Nehemiah, well, he just took a look around and he saw that some of his people were being treated unfairly just because they were poor. And Nehemiah, he just didn't sit back and hope that things would get better. He did something about the problem. He stood up for the people who were being mistreated, and he made sure that the people who were mistreating them promised to stop. And he really cared about the needs of others, and he put them first. And you know what? That's what Jesus did too. He saw people. He showed people how valuable they were by loving them no matter what. And he inspired them to share his love with others. You know, we can be a part of the work of God anytime, and we can be part of the work that God is doing today. And with God's help, we can see things that are wrong and work to make them right. Remember, look for ways to make things right. That means we should stand up for people who are treated unfairly because of the way they look, or where they're from, or how much money they have, or what they believe. If you see something like that happening and you're not sure what to do, well, maybe you could talk to an adult about it, like a parent or a teacher, or maybe you realize that you've been treating someone unfairly, or that you've been unkind. Maybe your sister or brother or even a friend. Well, you can make the first move by just simply going to them and saying, I'm sorry. You can take the initiative to make things right. And making things right is hard work, but it's good work. It's the kind of work that God can do through each and every one of us every single day. So kids, let's take some initiative this week. Look around us and let's take the time to make things right, okay? Listen, I don't have a lot of time left here, but I do want to remind you that we meet in person every single weekend on Saturday at 5 and on Sundays at 10. We're back in our Grace Space. Things are growing and going awesome, and we want to see you come join us anytime. But I know that some of you can't because you're watching this from quite a distance. So I want you to know you're part of Grace Kids just like anybody else, and we love you. We're praying for you. And if you have a need, ask your mom and dad to reach out to me. We would love to help. Kids, I love you. I hope to see you soon. But for right now, right hand up in the air. High five. I'll see you soon.